Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. In today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to create this very impressive Superman Lego cake, and of course he is one of the characters from the new Lego movie. I've been really looking forward to making this cake because in my household my little ones just love Superman and Lego. So what better way than to combine the both in the one cake. So today I'm using the Superman template, and you can get a link to this in the description box below. I've got my board which I've covered. I've got a fondant roller, a cake smoother, I've got my pizza cutter and an offset spatula. I've also got a small palette knife, a sharp knife, an X-Acto blade and a brown edible marker. And I've taken this marker out of this packet of coloured edible markers, and I'll put a link to where you can buy this from in the box below. I've got a 1" and 1/4" round cutter, a paintbrush and a little bit of water. I've got some chocolate ganache here, as well as my 8" cake, and I've got some blue fondant, some flesh coloured fondant and black and a little bit of white. So the first thing we're going to do is put the template on top of the cake, and you can see here there's just a little bit of cake that we need to remove. I've cut a little bit of the side of the template just near his hair and his face, and I'm going to turn these two pieces up because I actually want to cut around them. So holding the knife vertically, you need to cut all of the excess cake off following the line of the template and remove all of this excess cake. Here I have my chocolate ganache, and I'm going to cover my entire cake, the top and the sides, with the ganache, creating a crumb coat, and once I've finished I'm going to pop it in the fridge for about 15 minutes to set. While the cake is in the fridge I'm going to work on my board. So I've already covered a board with red fondant, and I'm going to create a Lego board, and this time I'm going to use some blue fondant to create some dots which I'm going to stick on top to make it look like a Lego board. So using the 1" cutter I'm just going to cut a series of circles out of the fondant, and then I'm going to start attaching them to the board. I'm using blue and red here because I want to make it look like Superman's cape, so that's why I've used the red board with the blue dots. But really, in cake decorating there are no hard and fast rules, and it's great to use your imagination to come up with something unique, and remember to always have fun and try and show your personality through the cake. So I'm attaching the dots now vertically and horizontally across the board, and when I do this I'm not actually going to go right to the center of the board because that's where we're going to put our cake. So you can see if I put my template there, the space I haven't covered will be taken up by the cake. I've got the cake out of the fridge now and it's formed a nice crust. I'm going to work on creating Superman's little Lego neck. So I'm just going to insert my knife about 1 centimeter down into the cake, and from the front I'm going to slice into the cake until I meet that first cut and remove that little piece. I'm just going to then fill up that little cavity with a bit more of my chocolate ganache. Now it's time to create a nice smooth surface on top of the ganached cake. So using some boiling water and my offset spatula, I heat up the spatula in the water and then wipe off the excess with a paper towel and use the hot spatula to smooth over the entire surface of the cake. It's time to start covering the cake with the fondant, and the first thing we're going to do is work on Superman's face. So I've got some skin coloured fondant here which I'm going to roll about 2 to 3 centimeters thick, and with my template I've actually cut around the face, so I remove the hair section, and when I cut my fondant I'm going to make sure I've got enough fondant at the bottom of Superman's face to cover the front sides of the cake. So gently putting the fondant onto my roller, I'm going to first of all line up the template on the cake, and using my palette knife, or you could use a knife or a blade, just make a little cut across the top line of Superman's face. So this is going to be a guide for me when I lay my fondant over the cake. Now I have to grab my cake smoother and smooth the top and sides of the cake. Make sure to get into the neck area with the cake smoother and really use your fingers to define the edges and the corners of Superman's neck and face. I then like to cut off most of the excess fondant with my pizza cutter before then going around the cake with my X-Acto blade to get a nice neat edge. Now here I've got Superman's hair, and what I've done is cut out his little curl at the front of his forehead because we're going to do that separately. So I'm going to first roll out my black fondant to about 2 to 3 mils thick, and the first thing we're going to do is work on the back sides of his hair. So those are those two side pieces that we originally folded back when we cut the cake. So to do those I'm just going to use the template as a guide, but you don't really have to. All we're after is a bit of a rectangular shape that we're then going to attach to the side of the cake. I'm just going to use a little bit of water to adhere that piece of fondant, and you can see it's sort of like the back and side of Superman's hair, not really the front section of his hair. So once you've put that piece of fondant on, just trim off the excess along the bottom. So don't forget to do the other side, and I'm just going to cut out a triangular piece this time. It's not really important what shape it is, just so that we get a nice square finish, and just adhere it to the cake, smooth it down and trim off the excess fondant. I can place the template for Superman's hair over the black fondant that we've rolled, and I'm going to trace around it with my X-Acto blade. So I'm not going to worry about the curl section, I'm just going to go right round and make sure at the top you cut enough to cover the back side of the cake, and gently roll the fondant onto the top of the cake, overlapping a bit of his face. Then smooth down the top and sides. Make sure you open up the fondant and use your hands to smooth down the sides of the cake. And then using my blade, I'm going to trim off all of the excess fondant. Now I want to really create the definition of Superman's Lego hair, so using the back of my paintbrush and the template as a guide, I'm going to press into the fondant and create the waves of Superman's hair. So I'm really going to press quite firmly here, not so much so that I make a hole in my fondant, but I really want the ridges to stand out of Superman's hair. Now to create that trademark curl that falls over his forehead, I'm just going to roll out a fairly thick snake, making sure the ends come into a nice round point, and using the template as a guide, I'm going to cut my curl to the right size, and then with my fingers I'm going to pinch the top of the curl to create a nice sharp ridge. So this is going to add a lot of definition to Superman's curl and make it really stand out. So keep pinching with your fingers until you get a nice sharp point at the top, and use the template as a guide to position the curl in place, and dampen the fondant with a bit of water and your paintbrush and position the curl onto the cake. Now I'm going to transfer the cake onto my cake board, and I'm going to position it in that blank section on the cake board. Now we're going to start working on adding the features. So I've cut out the mouth and eyebrows from the template, and I'm going to put that onto a rolled piece of black fondant. And before I cut those out, I'm going to use my 1/4 inch cutter to cut out 2 circles for the eyes. So now I'm just going to trace around my template pieces, and now I'm going to position the template on top of the cake and use that as a guide to get the correct positioning for the eyebrows as well as the eyes. Now I've cut the mouth template down a bit further so that I've only got the white section, and using the blade I'm just going to cut that out of the white fondant and gently place it on top of the black mouth that we created. And once again I'm going to use the template to place his mouth in the correct spot. Now using the white fondant I've created 2 small balls which I'm going to use for the center of Superman's eyes. Now to create his chiseled look, I'm going to use the brown edible marker to draw on the patterns onto his face. So the first one on the cheek, it sort of looks like a lightning bolt, and it's best to take your time and do this carefully because of course it is a permanent mark that we're creating on the cake. And then slowly move on to the eyes, which is just a crease and a little bit of a crease under his mouth and a bit of a dimple under his chin, and of course the other chiseled lightning bolt on the other side. So there you go guys, you can see how easy it was to create the Lego Superman character. I hope you'll give it a go at home and share your finished cakes with me by posting a photo on my Facebook page. Over the next few weeks I'll be doing a couple more of the characters from the Lego movie, so keep an eye out for those. And guys, if you enjoyed my video, I'd love it if you could give it a like and share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more great tutorials. Thanks for watching.